"Ma'am, you need to stay back and let the professionals handle this." The police officer's hand comes up to stop 25-year-old Rachel Kim as she approaches the warehouse, where gunshots just rang out, his entire team standing frozen outside, while screams echo from inside. She's wearing yoga pants and a coffee-stained sweater, looking like she just came from the gym, but there's something about the way she moves toward the sound of danger, instead of away from it, that makes the officer hesitate. What he doesn't know is that Rachel spent 4 years as an army ranger doing hostage rescue in places most people can't find on a map. Before this gets intense, hit that subscribe button if you love stories about hidden warriors who reveal themselves when it matters most. And comment below about a time you witnessed someone surprise everyone with their abilities. Rachel was supposed to be getting coffee. That was the plan. Simple morning routine. Here at the gym, shower, grab coffee from the place down the street, then head home to work on her online classes. Nothing complicated, nothing dangerous. She had been out of the army for 8 months now. After 4 years of deployment after deployment, mission after mission, she decided it was time to try being a normal person. Whatever that meant. She enrolled in community college, got a small apartment in Denver, and tried to figure out what came next. Most days were fine. Boring but fine. She would wake up, work out to burn off energy she didn't know what to do with anymore, then spend hours staring at textbooks about business management or computer programming. Subjects that felt meaningless compared to what she used to do, but it was safe, predictable, nobody shooting at her, nobody depending on her to make life or death decisions. Just a regular life. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Rachel finished her workout at the gym around 8, drove home, showered, and headed out to grab her usual vanilla latte. The coffee shop was 3 blocks from her, apartment in an industrial area that was slowly being converted into trendy lofts and small businesses. She parked on the street and was walking toward the shop when she heard the sound, gunshots, 3 of them. Rapid succession. Coming from the warehouse building across the street, Rachel's body reacted before her mind caught up. She dropped into a crouch behind a parked car, her eyes scanning for threats, her breathing controlled. Every instinct she had spent 4 years developing came roaring back in an instant. Other people on the street were screaming and running away. A woman dropped her shopping bags and sprinted toward the corner. A man dove behind a dumpster. Everyone was moving away from the sound. Everyone except Rachel. She stayed low and moved toward the warehouse. It was an old brick building that had been partially renovated, but still looked rough around the edges. The front door was open. She could hear shouting inside. Male voices, and then another sound that made her blood run cold. A child crying. Rachel reached the edge of the building and pressed herself against the wall. She could see through the partially open door. Inside was a large open space with concrete floors and exposed beams. There were boxes stacked everywhere, probably inventory for whatever business operated out of here. And in the middle of it all were 4 men with guns. They were facing toward the back of the warehouse where Rachel could see 2 women and 3 children huddled together. One of the men was yelling at them, waving his pistol around. Another was standing by the door like a lookout. The other 2 were loading boxes into a van parked inside the building. This wasn't random. This was a robbery that had gone wrong. Rachel pulled out her phone and dialed 911. She kept her voice low and gave the operator the address, told them there were armed suspects and hostages, and that shots had been fired. How many suspects? The operator asked. 4 that I can see, Rachel said. They have at least 3 handguns visible. There are 5 hostages, 2 adult women and 3 kids. Ages look like maybe 6 to 10 years old. Ma'am, I need you to leave the area immediately, the operator said. Police are on their way. Do not approach the building. Rachel ended the call. She knew what the operator would say. Standard procedure. Stay safe. Let the professionals handle it. Wait for backup. But Rachel had been in situations like this before. She knew how fast things could go wrong. Those kids were terrified. One of the men was getting more agitated by the second. And police response time in this area was at least 5 to 10 minutes. A lot could happen in 10 minutes. She moved closer to the door, staying out of sight. She could hear the conversation now. The agitated one, who seemed to be in charge, was yelling at one of the women. Where's the safe? I know there's a safe in this office. You tell me where it is right now or I start making examples. The woman was crying. I don't know. I just worked the front desk. I don't have access to anything. One of the kids, a little boy, was sobbing loudly. The man turned toward him. Shut that kid up. The other woman pulled the boy closer. Please just take whatever you want and leave. We won't call the police. Just don't hurt anyone. Too late for that, the lookout by the door said. Someone already called the cops. We need to move, the leader cursed. All right, change of plans. We take them with us. Put them in the van. We'll use them to get through whatever roadblocks the cops set up. Rachel's jaw tightened. They were talking about taking hostages in a vehicle. That changed everything. Once they were mobile, the danger level went through the roof. Kids could get killed in a car chase or a standoff. She had to do something. Rachel scanned her surroundings. She wasn't armed. She hadn't carried her service weapon since leaving the army. She had nothing but her phone, her keys, and the knowledge of how to handle situations like this. She looked at the building's layout. There was a side entrance about 20 feet away, partially hidden by stacked pallets. If she could get inside through there, she might be able to create a distraction, something to buy time until police arrived. It was stupid, reckless. Every tactical instructor she ever had would tell her to wait for backup, but those kids were crying. And the men were getting ready to move them. Rachel made her decision. She moved quickly to the side entrance. The door was unlocked. She slipped inside and found herself in a narrow hallway that led to what looked like an office area. She could still hear the voices from the main warehouse space. She needed a distraction, something loud enough to pull their attention, but not put the hostages in immediate danger. She spotted a fire alarm on the wall. Perfect. Rachel pulled the alarm. Immediately, a piercing siren filled the building, echoing off the concrete walls. Strobe lights started flashing. She heard the men shouting in confusion. What the hell? Turn that off. Rachel moved quickly through the hallway toward the main space. She could see them now through a doorway. All 4 men were looking around, trying to figure out what was happening. The hostages were still huddled together, covering their ears from the noise. One of the men, the one who had been loading boxes, walked toward the hallway where the alarm was coming from. He was holding his gun loosely at his side, not expecting any threat. Big mistake. As he came through the doorway, Rachel was waiting. She had positioned herself behind a filing cabinet. The moment he passed her, she moved. 4 years of close-quarters combat training kicked in. Rachel stepped forward, grabbed his gun hand and twisted it sharply downward, while driving her elbow into his throat. The gun clattered to the floor as he gasped for air. She followed with a knee to his stomach, and he went down hard. The whole thing took 3 seconds. Rachel grabbed the gun and checked it. Loaded, safety off. She moved to the doorway and assessed the situation. The other 3 men had heard the scuffle. They were turning toward her position, raising their weapons. Drop them, Rachel shouted, her voice cutting through the alarm. Her weapon was trained on the nearest suspect. Get on the ground now. The leader's eyes went wide. Who the hell are you? Someone who knows what they're doing, Rachel said, which is more than I can say for you. Drop your weapons and get on the ground, or this goes bad for everyone. The lookout by the door started to raise his gun toward her. Rachel shifted her aim instantly. Don't, she said, her voice cold and calm. I will put you down before you finish that movement. Drop it. Something in her tone made him freeze. Maybe it was the complete lack of fear in her voice. Maybe it was the way she held the weapon with professional competence. Either way, he slowly bent down and placed his gun on the ground. The leader was still holding his pistol. You're bluffing, he said. You're not a cop. You look like some soccer mom who wandered into the wrong place. Rachel's expression didn't change. Former Army Ranger, 75th Regiment. I've done this exact scenario about 100 times, except the last guys I dealt with were actual trained soldiers, not idiots robbing a warehouse. So I'm going to give you 5 seconds to put the gun down before I make you put it down. Your choice. The man hesitated. Outside, Rachel could hear police sirens getting closer. Time's up, she said. The leader looked at his remaining buddy, who was already backing away with his hands up. He looked at the gun in Rachel's hands and saw how steady it was. He looked at her eyes and saw someone who had absolutely no doubt about what she was capable of. He put the gun down. Get on the ground, faces down, hands behind your heads, Rachel ordered. All of you now, they complied. Rachel kept her weapon trained on them while moving toward the hostages. It's okay, she said to the women and children. Police are almost here. You're safe now. One of the women was staring at her in shock. "Who are you?" "Just someone who was getting coffee," Rachel said. 30 seconds later, police came through the front door, weapons drawn. They saw Rachel standing over 4 suspects on the ground, holding a weapon in a proper grip, completely calm. The first officer through the door was a sergeant named Torres. He took in the scene instantly. "Ma'am, I need you to put the weapon down slowly." Rachel complied immediately, setting the gun on the ground and stepping back with her hands visible. "I disarmed one of the suspects," she said calmly. The other 3 surrendered. "All hostages are unharmed. There may be more suspects, but I only saw these 4. Torres looked at her like she had just landed from another planet. "Who are you?" "Rachel Kim, former Army Ranger. I was outside when I heard shots fired. I called it in and tried to keep the situation contained until you arrived." More officers flooded into the building, securing the suspects and checking on the hostages. One of the women ran to Rachel and hugged her, crying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you. They were going to take our kids. You saved them." Rachel stood awkwardly, not used to emotional displays. She just nodded and gently patted the woman's shoulder. Torres walked over after the scene was secured. "I'm going to need a full statement," he said. "But first I gotta ask, Army Ranger, for real?" Rachel pulled out her phone and showed him her military ID card that she still carried. 75th Ranger Regiment. 4 years active duty, specialized in hostage rescue and direct action. Torres shook his head in amazement. "Lady, you just did in 5 minutes what would have taken us a full tactical team and hours of negotiation. Those kids would probably be in a van right now if you hadn't acted." "I just bought time," Rachel said. "You guys did the rest." But Torres wasn't buying the modesty. He had been a cop for 15 years. He knew what real training looked like. This wasn't some lucky civilian who got brave. This was a professional who handled a deadly situation with textbook precision. The story made the news within hours. Yoga-clad woman takes down armed robbers, saves hostages. The local station interviewed Torres, who described Rachel as one of the most competent individuals he had ever seen in a crisis situation. Rachel hated the attention. She declined interview requests and tried to go back to her normal routine. But the coffee shop started giving her free drinks. The gym gave her a lifetime membership. People in her neighborhood recognized her and wanted to shake her hand. The mother of one of the kids who had been held hostage reached out and asked if she could bring her son to meet Rachel properly. The boy, whose name was Daniel, had been having nightmares about the robbery. Rachel agreed to meet them. Daniel walked up to her shyly, holding his mother's hand. "Are you really a soldier?" he asked. "I was," Rachel said, kneeling down to his level. "I'm not anymore. Now I'm just trying to figure out what to do next." Daniel looked at her seriously. "You should be a soldier again. You're really good at it." Rachel smiled. "Maybe, we'll see." But the kid's words stuck with her. For 8 months, she had been trying to convince herself that leaving the military was the right choice, that she could be happy living a quiet, normal life. But that morning in the warehouse reminded her of something important. She was good at what she did. Not just good, exceptional. And there were people who needed someone with her skills. 3 months later, Rachel joined the Denver Police Department's SWAT team. She brought her ranger training to a department that desperately needed it. She became one of their best operators, specializing in hostage rescue and high-risk entries. She never forgot the morning she walked into a robbery while wearing yoga pants and holding a coffee. The morning that reminded her who she really was. And every time someone underestimated her, because she looked like just another civilian, she would smile to herself. Because she knew the truth. You can take the soldier out of the army, but you can't take the ranger out of the soldier. Not ever.